Welcome aboard, Aliens, UFOs, and Beyond. This is Renee Chavez, co-host right now, host to co-host. But Christina will be in shortly. Just want to welcome everybody to the show. I hope you're going to enjoy this show because we have a whole lot of stuff to talk about alien contacts and so forth. But, you know, many things have been taking place all over the world. I know everybody's been paying a lot of attention to a lot of the quakes that's been going on, and of course the strange weather that we've been having, the floods and so forth. And of course, you know, we've been hearing a lot about the volcanoes, and of course now everybody's been paying a whole lot of attention to what's going on in Mammoth Lakes. I was checking on it periodically using via Google Earth, and I've noticed that they kind of disengage the meters, the sensors that streams through Google Earth. So from the USGS, and it's like, kind of makes you wonder what's going on, why they switch it off. You know, they have many reasons why they do that, possibly because they don't want people, you know, kind of jumping into their so-called business, you know, because people like to get a little too excited about it, what's taking place in various parts of the globe that could be high risk, may cause a panic or so forth. And, of course, it goes viral on Facebook and other social media. But to me, I feel that people should be made aware of what's going on around the planet as well as the Earth changes, because we know that the solar flares have a great effect on the Earth when we get hit by whatever solar activity that we have. And also it has a great effect on our weather. And, of course, when you think about it with the weather modifications of the chemtrails and so forth, and HAARP also play into it. And so the Earth is really off balance right now because us as mankind kind of messed things up. So it kind of really throws the normal cycle that the Earth and the Sun has when we get certain effects of the Earth. But, you know, a lot of these occurrences, since we kind of meddled with nature itself, it causes a great amount of effects, you know, when it comes to like the earthquakes and so forth. But it's actually a natural phenomenon. You know, the Earth goes through many changes. It goes through cycles. But with all the fracking and all these other things that we're doing to the Earth, really, really causes a powerful imbalance. And, of course, that affects everything that surrounds us. So, you know, I look at it as a learning experience as far as paying attention to when I go to Google Earth or check other meters that are sensors around the Earth, that we have to pay attention more to what's going on because it is a pattern, and if we follow the pattern, you could almost, I mean, not exactly, but almost predict which places are going to get hit the most or what's going to be hit next. So that's why people really need to pay more attention to what's going on in the surrounding areas, paying attention to the climate as well. That has a big part of it. So when I do pay attention to these things, and I kind of do my own little calculations, and you know, as I got my Google map all set up, and more than likely I do kind of hit it right on the dot which place it's going to get next.
Do you now?
Yes, I do. Hello, ladies.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, welcome to my show.
I bet you go on for a little while.
So you just like hearing me ramble and just kind of like go on?
Something like that. Something like that.
Yeah.
Well, how are you doing tonight? I hope all of our listeners are doing well.
I'm doing well.
How's things been going?
Things have been going really well. And like I've been mentioning, I've been monitoring, Earth stuff and noticing when the USGS starts turning off certain sensors so that the live stream that I get on my Google Earth at least just stops. And it's mostly just in the California area. So that's when I know, okay, well, they turn off our side off because with all the extra activity we've been getting, I've noticed that there was a big pattern taking place, like in the Mammoth Lakes area. So I didn't pay a lot of attention.
Oh, yeah.
So I use all these other channels to try to figure things out and notice that, there's still activity taking place in the Mammoth Lakes area. So it's part of a major super volcano, but it is. And it's still
not even that, Renee. Even like all of the solar flares and solar activity that we've been getting. I mean, we've been seeing crazy stuff. I mean, look at the Napa earthquake. Now, for people who don't know, I grew up in Napa and spent my whole childhood there, and even on and off throughout my adult years. And in all of those years, living in California, I have experienced, many earthquakes. They are usually from somewhere else, and like San Francisco or San Jose, other places up by Clear Lake or by the geysers, but not in Napa itself. And when, this one hit, they found that nobody knew about this fault line until it happened. And now subsequently they found another fault line as well that they see as very active and could, end up having an earthquake anytime on it. And they said if, they get hit with one on that fault line, that you could expect in that area at least up in the upwards of an 8. And, so obviously we're not that far from there. And, for the last few years, we've talked about this a lot. And especially, the California coastline. And, people predicting that it'll, fall off into the sea and things like that. And I'm telling you, I do see, some really major issues for the coastline. Yeah. And I think that, it will be something like that causes it.
Yeah, and you've done some predictions about what's taking place now. So, earlier in the year, so.
Right, on my prediction shows, we've done some came true right away. Some are, happening now. Some are, still. But yeah, it's crazy, and we're noticing, all around. We're noticing, eruptions that haven't happened for a very long time, and earthquakes of major magnitudes that have never been seen before. Or they didn't know about them before, or once known fault lines. They're having, quite a lot more activity on those fault lines than normal. So, yeah, it's kind of just all over the place. And not even that, but just even the extreme weather. I mean, I really foresee that this winter, I see some really bad things. I hate to say it, but I really see that people thought last year was rough. I don't think it's even going to compare.
Yeah. So we haven't seen nothing yet. So.
No. Wow. And I hate to say stuff like that because I have a lot of people, including one of my daughters that, lives on the East Coast. So the last thing, I want is to find out, something like that's going on and, she's stuck way out there, as well. But it is what it is. And, I just think that people definitely need to prepare.
Because I know I see a lot of this on Facebook, and then you get people that kind of complain, well, you being a bunch of fear-mongers, it's like, well, it's not being fear-mongers, it's just a matter of being prepared. If it happens, be ready for it. If it doesn't, then, at least you have provisions of trying to be ready no matter what happens, because we never know what's going to happen within our own communities. So it's just try not to get yourself too surprised about what's going to happen, but just having that preparation and, create a little kit for yourself, the get up and go kit kind of thing, just having that type of things ready, because you just never know when exactly it's going to hit.
That is so true. And, I'm a big person about prepping and being prepared and, always getting stuff to have and even, plans on, like, where to go, what to do, who's coming, all these kind of things. I mean, we're all kind of very much on the same page, so we think alike. But the thing that, shocked me is now all over the television, Red Cross is constantly putting up, things about earthquakes and natural disasters and having, being prepared and having a kit. And I will tell you that, Napa was so unprepared.
Mm-hmm.
There were, so many injuries. People were out, didn't have any power or any electricity or anything, phones for a few days, I think, at the very beginning. And people were freaking out. They had nothing. And it's like, why? People get so complacent, always thinking that nothing is going to ever happen to them, and it happens to everybody else. And then when it happens, they're like, oh, no, what the hell are we going to do? Because, you can have all the money in the world or you can be the poorest person, but if you do not have anything prepared on site, if you've got, millions of dollars, if you can't access any of it, it won't do you a darn bit of good. So you need to have all, water, most importantly, even if people are just going to do the most minimal of kits, canned goods, things that can be, just heated up maybe like over a fire or something like that. People really need to think about this. Batteries, flashlights, you want to make sure that you have candles, all different things, and, make sure that you've got a first aid kit that's available, all things like that. Also, you want to make sure that, you don't let your cars get really low in gas, because if there was to be an emergency, gas is going to, go very, very quickly, and there will be lines like crazy to even be able to get it if you can. And everybody's going to have the same probably ideas if you are to, head out on the major freeway. So you can probably assume those are going to be pretty packed too. So people need to have, alternate routes. They need to have, plans. Are you going to stick it out at your house? Are you going to go somewhere else? Just lots of things that you have to think about, because even with our wildfires around here, many people who want to stay are being forcefully, evacuated. So you might not even be able to stay at home. So, you might need to have stuff packed and, put to the side for you and your family in case, an emergency did come and you had to just take off. You want to make sure you've got birth certificates, important papers, all put in file cabinets in one place so that, if in a case of an emergency, you can get the things that are most important, get rid of them. Everything else is just materialistic. It doesn't matter. But your important papers, important things, those are what are important. But, we do need to kind of, keep an eye on that, all of us. And as I said, with winter right around the corner, we definitely, if you're not prepared, you need to be, because I feel like, the eastern coast states that, where there's a lot of snow, I see people getting, like, severely snowed in, for very long periods of time this coming winter. So I definitely think people need to be prepared, period.
Yeah, that's just the thing, I'm not trying to be a fear monger. It's just a matter of being prepared for whether it's major storms or heavy flooding, no matter where you are, it's just a matter of, just being prepared for any kind of disaster. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I believe our guest is here.
All right. Well, tonight, before we introduce our guest, because our guest tonight, again for the second week, we have somebody who is coming forward with their story for the first time ever on our show. And I want to say I really, really appreciate our guests that are willing to come in and come on the show, talk about their experiences because, although more people are doing it, there still is a lot of people out there that, have a lot to lose, out talking about these kinds of topics. And tonight is no different. And because of our guest's position in the community and career that he has, he's asked that we not use his full name. And so we're going to do that. We're just going to go by the name of Sean this evening. And so for anybody that may have questions tonight of our guest, you are more than welcome to call in. Let me get the call-in number. The call-in number tonight is 713-955-0384. We are in the chat at the DTN Wicked link, so you can come on over to the chat room and talk to us. We always have a lot of fun. We also have the Blog Talk link up. Now, you can listen through the chat link. There is audio through there through the DTM Wicked Radio Network site. But we also simulcast through Blog Talk on Wednesday nights, and so you can also listen to it through that link. And it also, for our listeners out there that don't get a chance to listen right when we go live, they're able to access that archived podcast right after the show, and it's all right there. So give us a call if you're interested in asking a question of Sean tonight, or also if you have your own experience. I would really like to open the lines up tonight and invite anybody that feels, comfortable enough, whether you've spoken about your experiences or not, feel free to call in tonight and tell us about them. So with that being said, Sean, are you there?
I am here.
How are you?
Well, pretty good. I just want to say thanks for having me. It's, like you mentioned, it is my first official, I guess, my coming out party, in a way, discussing these things. It's quite an extensive topic for me, and it's been going on for a long time. So, yeah, thanks again for having me. It's going to be a little bit nervous to talk about it, but it'll make sense to a lot of your audience when I explain a few things. And it's going to be a little different, I'm going to guess, probably than what you're maybe used to, but we'll see as we go.
Absolutely. I mean, Renee and I, I'm not sure how much you know about myself, but Renee is actually one of my team investigators. We have two divisions of our paranormal group. One side is for the paranormal. The other side is for UFO research. We deal with helping out abductees, contactees, experiencers, star children. We mentor kids, things like that. Renee has his own very interesting story himself. And, the great thing about it is we have a worldwide audience, great listening numbers. And the thing is that it makes it so great because these people are like-minded. The majority of them have had their own experiences. So a lot of times, people coming on the show and talking about their own experiences really helps a lot of the other listeners not, feel so alone. And we find this over and over and over. And, so I think that you'll have no problems with being too nervous. It's just kind of, the three of us talking and, just letting you talk about your experiences and taking some questions as they come in. But we'll make it as painless as we can for you.
Excellent. I look forward to it.
So where did it all start out for you? I guess the best thing to do is just start from the beginning. Okay.
Well, for me, it started right from the beginning. As far back, I can say now the strange things were happening as far back as I can remember, and I'll give you an example of that. And as a premise, it wasn't until I was about 27 before I really figured out what was going on. As I was growing up, a little kid and all that, I just figured that was perfectly normal because I didn't know anything else. So to me, it was just normal everyday stuff. So
right.
So as far back as I can remember, they were starting. These little events were starting, and my mom even knows all about it because I would tell her. So when I was 3 and 4, in my room, you know how little kids will have like their imaginary friends or whatever, little boogeymen or whatever. Well, I had a very specific one, and I called it Mr. Shadow. And they would typically show up when I'm in bed, or they would wake me up and interact with me. And I never back then, nothing ever was harmful or poking and prodding like some of the things you would hear about, but it was just real innocent, just interaction. Like I would play with them or things like that. And so that went on for years, and then, well, not too many years, but that part went on, and then I seemed to evolve to a point where I started seeing, I guess you could say, disturbances where I was being watched all the time. And then I would often have experiences where I would like suddenly wake up in a strange place, and that went on for a long time. So there's so many stories to tell that I have to kind of pick and choose which ones to focus on. So I'll jump forward a little bit. Now all these years I was seeing a certain being. You know how there's several reported alien beings, like you have the Greys and the humanoids and all these different types. Well, I've never seen the Greys. I have no clue anything about those guys. There was only a couple that I saw. There was one that I saw all the time, and one that I would see just once in a while. Just I could probably say 3 or 4 times that I remember. And they're very nifty at what they do when they do their abductions. I figured it out years later, but it's kind of a funny story. When I was in graduate school in San Jose, I was actually sitting with a friend of mine who was a police officer in the South Bay area, like Gilroy, and on his, this is a true story, on his coffee table he had a Harvard Encyclopedia of Alien Abductions. So I thought that was really, really neat, because at that point I still had no idea I was being abducted. I still had no idea that I was being, interfered with this entire time. It was just everyday stuff for me. So I'm sitting in his living room, and him and I are going to go hang out that night, and he had this Encyclopedia of Abductions, and I'm like, okay. So I start flipping through it. And I'm flipping through it. Now, remember, I've had no interest in aliens or UFOs or nothing. I've never had any interest in it at all. And so that's why I was flipping through the book. So I'm flipping through the book, and, there's certain chapters on the Greys and chapters on these people and the insectoids and the humanoids. And so I finally flipped the page, and I about had a panic attack because I saw a picture of a reptilian, the typical drawing of a reptilian. And it suddenly occurred to me when I saw that, I'm like, OMG times 10, underlined in 100 colors. That's those little buggers that's been messing with me. So it finally came to, in my late 20s, what happened and what has been going on. And so then I got really into it, because I'm like, oh my goodness, I have been poked and prodded on. I've been here, I've been there, I've been taken to different planets, I've been shown different things, technologies, all this time, and I had no idea, absolutely no clue that these things were actually real. I thought maybe I was just hallucinating or very vivid dreams or something. But I tell you, when I saw that very first image of a reptilian, I'm like, the doors opened up. I mean, I could see underneath the door. I mean, it was the first time ever. So then what happened was, in San Jose, because of my profession, I had to kind of still keep it a little bit quiet. So I actually went and talked to psychologists. I talked to shrinks, people who specialize in this. I had a past life regression. I mean, I really wanted to get to the bottom of this. I'm like, why me? Why for so long? I had all these questions that I had to answer. And honestly, the more I looked into it, the more confused I became. Because when it comes to aliens and abduction stories and all that, you could talk to 100 different people and get 100 different responses. And so I couldn't find anything that resembled what I went through, And so and when I say reptilians, when I say that I was, I can honestly say, yes, okay, I've been abducted by them, I've been hanging out with them, I've been doing whatever, but I can honestly say I have never had a bad experience. I have never had a painful experience. I've woken up with scratches and cuts and burns, So those could have been negative experiences that I don't remember. But in general, I haven't really had anything bad. And I know that may be tough on some of the audience members, because I do know that the ones that are feared sometimes the most are the reptilians. And so that's when I finally put two and two together. And one of the stories that I can relay, and then you can ask me some questions about it, is that one of the very common themes when I was probably in my late teens, I went through a period of I would just fall asleep, and then at a certain point I would just wake up on another planet, and I would literally wake up on a red planet. I always remember it was always red. There was always red rocks, and things were different. I mean, heck, they could have shuttled me off to Death Valley. I don't know, but it just seemed like another planet. And there was always a younger reptilian there, like a younger guy, and he was roughly maybe my size or whatever. It was a smaller one, and he was always directing me around. And then once I reached a certain point, like for example, he would say, go up those stairs or walk around that corner or do this, I would always go a few steps or maybe a little bit farther, and then black. I remember nothing after that. But it was like a deliberate attempt where I can remember certain points, and other points I have no memory whatsoever. If that makes any sense.
Interesting. Renee, what's your thought?
Yeah, it sounds like he's been taken a few times, and a lot of people, when they hear about reptilians, they think, they say that, they're between 7 and 9 feet or, tall, but there are some short ones, the very different, different heights, because it's more than, one type of reptilian. And, of course, they take people, in various parts. And it sounds like they took you, I don't know if it might have been like kind of like a holographic deck or something that you had walked through, and then, of course, that basically sent you back home.
Right.
The bumps and, scrapes or whatever, you probably gotten bruised, whatever, that you were probably physically there, venturing out with this particular reptilian, and you actually, if you might have fallen or whatever, definitely leave marks on your body.
I just thought I was fighting back. I would always say, I guess I gave him struggle that night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because...
do you have any idea where you were waking up, Sean?
That is such an important question, because I would wake up all over the place. I'd wake up on ships. I'd be on a ship. And to this day, I can still see the different types of ships and different areas of a ship I would wake up on. I'm not going to say there were flying saucers or whatever, because I didn't see anything from the outside. I was always on the inside, and I remember going through certain areas and different sections, and believe it or not, I have almost always woken up with strange ideas of technology. And I'll share with your audience later a project that we're working on right now. It's kind of a secret, but at the very end, remind me to tell you about it, because I'm in my 40s now, and these events are still going on. I'm more understanding of it now, and I can tell you and your guest there that I have probably unlocked the key to abductions and how abductions are happening. And I don't know if they have allowed me to see this. Yeah, and I can tell you for sure what's happening. No questions about it. And and I can tell you if someone's and I can tell if someone's telling the truth or not.
Awesome.
Because I'm pretty dang sure of what's going on. I know how they do it. But remember, different aliens may abduct different ways, and I understand that. But I know for sure how they get me. Absolutely for sure. And I'll tell you, there's a one funny event that it's actually kind of common that I've read about, and it actually happened to me once. A little before when I was in graduate school in San Jose, a little bit before I told you the story where I opened that encyclopedia up. Well, one time I had woke up. I was actually and it was a little bit of a different event. So it may not have been the reptilians that I'm used to for so long. It may have been someone else having a stab at me or whatever. But I woke up, and I was literally looking into a light directly over me as if I was laying on a gurney, and I saw this drill coming down, just like you would see on the movies. A drill was coming down.
Oh, gosh.
And I saw this drill coming right between my eyes, and I'm looking up at it, and I think, I don't know if I was supposed to wake up, but I totally saw this thing, and then all of a sudden, it turned into a yellow bird. Just like that, poof, a yellow bird. And so then I guess I totally forgot about it. Then I woke up the next day getting ready for school, and I totally forgot about the dream. I went to the bathroom, and I just put my contacts on, and right between my eyes is a little pinprick of blood. And I saw that, and it jerked me right back to my dream, and I will never forget that. So whoever did that may not have meant me to remember that part, because I still remember that exact procedure. And so when people say that, and that's a very commonly reported one, that's one I completely believe in. No questions about that. That's almost comical to me, actually.
Well, it's very, very. I mean, that's very interesting. How that comes about. Now, when you went for your past life regression and your regression, were you able to get any, information of really what was going on with you? Or did it give you any answers for the most part? I mean, it makes a lot of sense that, most people, they start checking into all this stuff and, agreeing to go under hypnosis and do just about anything to be able to understand what's happening to them. But sometimes you do end up with having it cause more questions than really answers. So for you, were you able to get any answers?
Okay, I'll tell you honestly, I took it a step further than what I told you. I not only went and talked to shrinks and all that, and hypnotherapists. The hypnotherapy, one session may have helped me a little bit, but the rest of it, really nothing. But what I also did, because I was in the medical profession, I went and found myself some really good optic surgeons, ophthalmologists, and the specialists, like the rock stars in the field. They were in the Bay Area, and these are guys. I would say, look, under all confidentiality, full disclosure, I'm seeing really weird stuff, and I've been seeing them a long time. I want you to answer. Am I crazy? I want you to analyze my eyes, analyze my brain, my frontal cortex, my cuneiform lingual gyrus, analyze all that. And so I went to two very, very, very well-known specialists, and cause I want to make sure that I'm not bananas. You know what I mean? That I'm actually seeing what I think I see. And so I had a full-blown, top-down, inside-out, sideways to sideways examination, and there's nothing wrong with me. And then what happened? The eye doctor, the ophthalmologist surgical guy there, he told me something really interesting, and he sat me down, and he says, odds are what you're seeing, and he premised it with this, you're probably really seeing something, and he was honest with me. He said, you know what, you are definitely, if you are telling me what you're seeing, you are definitely seeing it. There's nothing we can find anywhere within your physiology that is indicating anything wrong with you. Then he said another point that interests me. He said, when people have optic issues, like they're seeing things, when the condition or the research goes beyond what's called the optic chiasm, which is where the optic nerve connects and then divides, he said nobody really knows what goes on beyond that anyways. So even at that point, even going to the who's who of the optic surgeons in the area, they still could not give me any answers other than the fact that I'm perfectly normal, there's nothing wrong with me. So it was concluded, more probable than not, that I am seeing what I'm seeing. It's not I don't do drugs, I don't drink very much, I don't do anything really cool that would cause that. I smoked pot maybe 10 times my whole life, and that's just by accident, and so so to answer your question, I would say not really. There was one event where that I still don't quite understand it. That it was a hypnotic hypnosis session. That I saw some interesting things. Like, for example, I saw myself in a tube that didn't make sense about the time when I was about 3. Now, when I say these events have been going on, since I was real little, there was one of my very earliest ones. I mentioned earlier that when I was tiny, I saw the Mr. Shadow guy, the one that was show up every night. Well, there was another event that I still cannot answer because it had nothing to do with reptilians. It was basically, I was about 4, and I was outside of my house, and I saw this a little white ship floating a little bit taller than I was. And I saw it, and I followed it. And in the community that I lived in, there was a little tiny street between the houses. And I followed it across the street, almost as if it was baiting me. And I followed it between 2 other houses. And in the back of the house on the left, there was a guy standing there dressed in white, completely dressed in white. And next to him, hovering above the ground, was a larger ship, almost like, if I would say, it was almost like a big toy, just hovering there. And the little thing that I followed connected up to it, and I followed it all the way to that point. And I looked at the guy, and I recognized him. And I looked at the ship that was hovering there, and I remember all of this, but I still to this day have no answer to that. I have no idea what that was. I was even thinking later on that might have been a time traveler, or something. Mm. I don't know. I still don't know. But I mean, there are so many stories like that. I mean, for years and years and years and years. So, yeah.
Now, another thing that, I like to kind of check with a lot of people who have been abducted. Now, I'm finding that not even with abduction, but with contact as well, that many people who are experiencing it also have experienced some kind of psychic abilities. Now, did you find that within yourself as well?
Yeah, I don't want to admit it, but yeah.
I know, but most people don't. So it's a very good,
it's hard to admit.
Good answer to that question. Almost kind of a trick question, but I get it.
Yeah.
Well, I've just been
investigating
this for. Go ahead.
Oh, that's pretty much a normal routine, and I caught, and kind of the lead up a little bit to what I was to your last program, or when you were talking about the disaster and all that. I for example, I saw the September 11th attacks on the Twin Towers probably 5 years before it happened. About 5 years, I saw the whole thing. And I
actually saw it right before it happened. Many people did.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
And I'm still in disbelief about it, but it was so vivid when I saw it. And it's always when I'm always in that not sleeping but not awake period, when you're in that transition zone.
Right.
And
right.
And I saw the entire thing, the whole event. And back then, of course, it made no sense.
Right.
I'm like thinking, what the heck was that?
Never does, really.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's interesting that again, many people experience a lot of the same kind of things. It's just that over the years now, I mean, obviously I grew up with psychic abilities and never really understood them until I was an adult. And the more that I got in, I had also seen UFOs my whole life. Every time I moved, I would see one growing up. I never felt as if I was abducted, didn't even know anything about it at the time because I was young. But I definitely knew that something was different about me. And I almost thought that when I was young that maybe like these UFOs like knew where I was because I had these special abilities. So, like, I knew I could see spirits and stuff. But again, being a young child, you don't know the difference between all this because everybody around you tells you that none of that stuff existed. So it's like, okay, well, then you're trying to connect the dots and make some, sense out of your life, and you can. So as I started talking to, more people over the years as an adult with my shows, interviewing abductees and contactees, I started noticing that a lot of them, had experienced some psychic abilities prior, or even, since that. now, when you were abducted, or had these experiences over your life, did you ever come back with, some people will come back with different markings and things like that on their body, or maybe a bruise or something that wasn't there before?
If you saw the markings, you would think I'm a UFC fighter sometimes.
Wow.
I would. Oh yeah, I'd have scratches all over me. I mean, just the other day I did, and so for a while I would take pictures of it and just kind of whatever, and I would show people, and who cares really, but the one that always got me was right on my butt on the side. There was a burn mark, like someone took a cigarette, or not a cigarette, but a cigar, and just nailed me with it. Just held it right there, and once in a while it gets so. There's so much of it that you can't explain it, and so I just figured, they try to tie me down, I just beat them up, and they probably like not looking forward to picking me up anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Now, have you?
They're like, oh no, we have to go
noticed...
get that guy again. Oh great.
No. Like Renee, like other marks too. Like people will find like a shaped color, like maybe like a diamond-shaped marking on their body somewhere, or maybe 3 little dots. Did you ever come back with any of those types of markings?
Like cuts like that? Cuts and scrapes like that?
Well, and they don't really look like cuts or scrapes. Like they'll look like, there's been, a couple of dots, like red dots that have been like almost like kind of seared into their body, small, but like sometimes in a shape, maybe a triangular shape. Some were, red marks that kind of look like a triangle.
I used to call them vampire bites.
Renee?
I used to call them vampire bites.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know I've had, marks like that through the years. Matter of fact, in more recent years, the past 2 or 3 years now, been getting them like on my arm, near my wrist, and I wake up and noticing these 3 little marks in a triangle form, and they're really close together. And at first I thought I got bit by something, but they were, the exact same distance, in measurement together. So it's like, okay, either that or the bug had really measured and make sure it bit me right. But it will be there for like a few days, and then it'll be totally gone and not even leave a scar anymore. And so that's why I thought it was kind of odd too. So I've had also markings on my back before, like scrapes and stuff like that, bruises. Like I just did a fucking roll and landed the wrong way. Yeah. It's like I've been through combat training and then wake up with all these bruises. Sometimes I'll find out, like, I wake up with a nosebleed. It's like, what the heck? Somebody just punched me in the middle of my sleep or something. But yeah, I won't wake up.
Maybe they're putting us in a ring and making bets on us.
Maybe. Hey, you never know. Well,
they
the interesting thing is
they need entertainment too.
But yeah, well, the interesting thing is that you don't know Renee, but Renee's story is he's actually a reptilian walk-in. So the interesting thing is that your experience, unlike most that have experiences with Greys, you have the experience with the reptilians, and it was kind of interesting, the connection that it was going to be, the way it ended up. So now, do you feel like you've ever been maybe had an implant placed in you, or have you ever had any X-rays or any evidence that you have had one placed?
That's a good question. I have an X-ray machine in my office actually, and I've always thought about just having getting a bunch of pictures. I've avoided it because I don't want to know. Part of me doesn't want to know, and I mean, I could literally do it anytime I want and just have the other doctor just. I got an ER surgeon in my office. He can snap pictures anytime. And so other than that, I don't know of any implants at all. I'm sure as many times as I've been beat up or been in a big fight, I'm sure I got something plugged into me somewhere. Because they got to track you somehow.
Yeah.
They got to keep tabs on you. And
right.
Yeah, and so when they do, when it's that time of night and they have to come and mess with you a little bit, they may even. I always thought too that they can actually instigate. Are you guys familiar with temporal lobe epilepsy?
No.
That was a yes or no question. Okay, no. Okay. Temporal lobe. Okay, so a lot of times people will, when you read about it, they'll report that they're frozen and they can't move.
Oh, you said temporal.
So temporal lobe epilepsy. So basically,
okay, I know it.
The scientists, like the doctors, can actually wire up your head and stimulate your brain and actually trigger temporal lobe epilepsy. So in essence, you can't move. You're like paralyzed, right? And so a lot of people will say that, and I felt this too a few times. Not that many times though, where I'm actually paralyzed and something's going on, right? I can't move. So I actually thought that maybe the implant or some other device they have near you or in you can actually just dial in your specific temporal lobe epilepsy to paralyze you, to snatch you out of your room. Sort of like a device, transmitter or
interesting.
Something.
Yeah, I mean that's very interesting
that
they could do something. Yeah, well, I mean I think that's kind of a good medical theory on how things are, because I actually have a brother who has epilepsy, and he has had these kind of episodes where he's having his seizures, and he is completely like he's just frozen in bed, and he says he can look with his eyes and everything, but he just can't move anything. And you get a lot of people who say that they experience that same kind of symptoms. Especially when they may be alert on, say, an examining table or something, and they will remember certain things, and then all of a sudden it's like they'll talk about how a thing will like touch your forehead or something, and then all of a sudden you're out. You don't remember till you wake up wherever you're at. And different things. So, I'm sure with them being so much more advanced than us, that I'm sure that they probably have ways to be able to do that, which would make us much easier to be able to do whatever we want to do. Because, of course, with us having free will, one of the biggest things is that when people are abducted, they freak out, and it's almost overly traumatic, because the biggest complaint is they didn't, it's like, well, they don't have my permission to take me. Well, obviously they don't need our permission. Did you ever feel that way? I mean, what's your feeling on as far as how people perceive, say, some people perceive a abduction, once they kind of like go with it or understand it, it's no longer like this traumatic experience for them. But otherwise, it seems to be very traumatic every time that they're taken. Do you have a theory on why that might be?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question, because I got all kinds of them tonight, huh? Yeah, because I thought about I've actually explored that one once I kind of clued into what was going on. I can tell when I'm near an abductee that they're being abducted. It's really strange, and well, like, for example, I could be literally walking to JCPenney's or in the mall or something, and if I walk by somebody, I can tell if they're having a bad experience without them even saying a word to me or ever meeting them. For some reason, I can tell, I can feel what they went through. And it's kind of a bizarre explanation, and it's I would say it's almost impossible to explain. Then I know for sure that's kind of what's going on, because I had a friend who I was able to compare, who was actually having a really bad experience with whoever was messing with them or whatever was messing with them, because I could sense what was going on, but not really what's going on, if that makes any sense. I can tell that something was going on. It was traumatizing him from his energetic side all the way up to the physical side, and I could feel it. And it's and when you're hanging out with friends, if someone just walks by you and you can feel like they've been actually abducted, the last thing I'm gonna do is tell my friends while we're having a beer, "Hey, buddy, that guy got abducted." Oh, boy, you didn't know the shot.
Right.
Yeah.
it's something, and so when you say that, I know people are being traumatized for sure, and some people aren't, and whether it's free will or it's okay with that, I don't know. I mean, I'm quite sure. Part of me thinks I'm totally fine with it because I'm so used to it. It's been going on for so long. Heck, I might be like your guest there or your co-host there. I might be one of them, and I've always suspected that. I might be part of the team, and maybe I'm part of their boxing league or something. They kind of pick me up and or whatever. That's why I come back all beat up sometimes. Whether it's voluntary or not, I would say more likely than not, it's not voluntary. By evidence of the fact that they don't let you remember anything. If they let you remember,
right.
The screen memories. So if they didn't give you any screen memories, if they just picked you up and dissected you and put you back together, that might mess you up. That might mess up your morning,
right?
Or make you very tired the next day. Yeah. Coffee just doesn't work sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I think that, a lot of what you're saying is right on. And again, you're seeing this as kind of, you're trying to look at it as an outsider and try to gain, all the perceive out, what you're getting from all this information, but it's also very personal because you're going through it at the same time. But again, I see so many people that, their biggest hang-up when they are abducted is the fact that they didn't have their permission. As if they had permission, it's different. Like, if you ask, can you abduct? It's not like they're going to say yes, but, that it somehow changes it. But once they kind of realize that, like, this is going to happen no matter what, and they seem to kind of let go of the fear of it, it seems that they start, it's not such a traumatic experience, and then they start actually getting and receiving information. And actually, a lot of times, quite a bit of it. So maybe once they kind of stop fighting the whole thing, it will make more sense, and then it changes for them. I'm not really sure. I just noticed that a lot of people are reporting that like, oh, it's so traumatic, it's so horrible. But then other people have had the exact same experiences and, originally maybe felt that way and then somehow gain knowledge that, there's a bigger purpose in all of this. And, them being part of it kind of changes their perception of it being something really bad to being something that is either helping another race or, they just seem to be more calmed about it.
Yeah. And, you could even take it to another level, the voluntary, the involuntary part, the knowledge that's brought back. When I come back, I always have some more knowledge of technology or future events, even expanding to your previous show about, disasters and all that stuff. Man, I have seen all that. I've seen everything on that level. I've seen different versions, different places. I even wanted to put together a map so I could start drawing it down, like things that's going to happen and all that. And, when it comes to, voluntarily seeing things and all that, when they give you information to bring home or bring back, I think they're doing that on purpose. There's a specific, I think, agenda that these guys or whatever have. And also, too, when you see a UFO, when you actually can, see one flying around, that's on purpose because I tell you, they can simply cloak themselves, and they're all over the place right now. And when you see one, that's deliberate. They want you to see them. Like you mentioned that you see spirits and all that. Well, there's the way spirits look to me, because I can see them as well. Spirits, when they're in that dimensional shifting part. I put together an idea later that also the aliens can do that also, not because they're spirits, but because they have technology to do that, and they can appear to us, or to me, as that shape. And I figured, well, if they can do it right in front of us, they can do that to their ships as well. And they could be all over the place. They could be above your radio show, monitoring you right now. They could be following me home right now. They can pretty much do whatever they want. And and so the question is, do we have a choice in it? Who knows?
Right. They're very,
Yeah.
very true. And I mean, doesn't seem like anybody's been able to, or at least I haven't spoken to anybody who's been able to stop it.
Right.
It happens when it happens. Sometimes, as time goes on, there will be more time in between where anything happens. Sometimes it's very close together. I don't think that there's any set, time when they come in or supposed to come and do it. I just think that when there's something that they need or something that they need to let somebody know, I mean, that's when it happens. Because some people I notice, say that they can remember being abducted ever since they were very young. Others,
right.
It happens out of nowhere as a grown adult. It's kind of all over the place. But again, doesn't mean that it wasn't happening in as large of a scale as it is now. I think that we're just more aware of it now.
Right.
More people are coming forward with their stories, just like you. More people are coming on my show to tell their stories for the first time. And it's not about, like, hey, look at me. And I have to really commend, guests like you, Sean, because, again, you have a career and, are well-known. And, you even still at this point, can't fully go out with, who you are, but, your story is getting out there, and it shows that, you're not worried about people knowing who you are. It's more about the information, getting out. A lot of people are experiencing very similar situations as you have. It may be a little different. It might be very much the same. There are just so many variations of what people experience. But I'll tell you, it is very, very therapeutic for other abductees, contactees, and experiencers to hear these stories so that, they realize just how grand of a scale we're talking about of people who have experienced similar things.
Exactly. Agreed.
How much of the inside of a craft or facility can you remember? Do you remember any of as far as the technology, any panels or kind of computer systems?
Yeah, actually, I remember a lot of the stuff. So that brings me to the next topic, technology and ideas that come back. So when it comes to being abducted, now I don't know if you guys have covered this topic, the act of being abducted. So when I talk to someone, when someone wants to talk to me about it, which it's not very often, and they're like, I've been abducted, and okay, that's cool, so what happens? Well, they do this and this, and sometimes you almost like your bullshit meter is going off the chart a little bit, your BS meter.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, all right. Well, then again, I have to also be respectful of the fact that different aliens may abduct differently, right? But I'll tell you for sure how I can tell my level of abduction if it's happening. And you generally want to ask, okay, what do you see when you are being abducted? If you remember what's going on, and if they say things like sparkly blue lights, sparkly silver lights, a bouncing light, I know they're telling the truth, because I figured out, and I don't know, like I said, I think they let me figure this out. This is not something I did on my own. I think they actually gave me a glimpse of how they do it, and I'm going to share with you how they do it. At least my guys.
Sean, right there, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we're going to we're right at the top of the hour, so we're going to get ready to take a break, but I think that this is a perfect place to pause, because when we come back, I think this is a great way to start the second hour and really kind of go through some of this stuff, and we'll take some questions from our online chat and see if we have some callers come in. But yeah, I definitely think that there is some great stuff to come right now, especially very, very interested in what people are seeing, and including yourself inside these. So All right, so everybody, we're going to be taking a quick, short break. We'll have a few sponsor commercials come on and pay some bills here at the network, and then we will be back with the second half. Stay tuned, and we will be right back with you.
Rolling Hills Asylum. Located in East Bethany, New York, just minutes between two major airports, Rolling Hills Asylum is a hotbed of paranormal activity. They have been featured on Travel Channel's Ghost Adventures, Paranormal Challenge, as well as Sci-Fi Channel's Ghost Hunters. Rolling Hills Asylum has been named the #2 most haunted location in the United States by HauntedNorthAmerica.com. The property was established on January 1st, 1827, as the county poor farm. Throughout the years, it has operated as a poor farm, infirmary, orphanage, tuberculosis hospital, nursing home, and more. Past residents and inmates consist of widows, orphans, physically disabled, mentally unstable, murderers, and more. Over 1,700 bodies are buried in unmarked graves, and hundreds more deaths went undocumented. Rolling Hills Asylum is known for a plethora of phenomena, including disembodied voices, doors slamming, footsteps, sounds of furniture moving, full-body apparitions, shadow people, ghostly touches, and numerous Class A EVP. Rolling Hills Asylum proudly offers historical and flashlight tours, 4- and 8-hour public ghost hunts, 8- and 9-hour private ghost hunts, and more, by appointment or pre-booking only. For more information, please visit www.rollinghillsasylum.com. That's www.rollinghillsasylum.com. Or give them a call, 585-502-4066. That's 585-502-4066. Rolling Hills Asylum. What are you doing this weekend?
Alrighty, we are back live with wrong show, Aliens, UFOs, and Beyond. I was just about to say Paranormal Connections, but that was my show on Monday. That tells you, how slow my brain is this week. But we are back with our Mr. Guest, Sean. He is an abductee himself, has had many experiences over his lifetime with abductions and interactions with not the normal grays that most abductees will report having interaction with, but his experience, if you weren't here in the first hour, was with reptilians. And so right before our break, we were just about ready to get into talking about, Renee had asked about the inside of the craft that he has been able to see. And then we've got some other topics that our guests would like to talk about. But boy, it's been a very intriguing first hour, so we're definitely looking forward to the second. So tonight, if you want to call in and you have a question for our guest, this will be the time to do it in our second half. Phone number 713-955-0384. You can either ask our guest a question, ask us a question, or if you've had an experience yourself and like to share it on the show, we welcome you to do so. So, Sean, are you still there?
I'm here.
All right, great. Well, again, it's been so interesting having you on the first half of the show, and to be honest, I'm surprised in a way that you haven't, been on any other radio shows or things like that, because I will tell you, people that come on and have their own personal experiences, especially now on, the online radio, they're very, very hot topic guests. And, usually by the time that, I get them on my show, they've, been on a lot of different radio shows. So, I mean, it's an honor, to have the fact that you chose, to come on the show with Renee and I to, discuss this experience, because it is a very personal one. So I really, really appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
All right. Well, let's get back to when you've been taken aboard these craft. Now, you said, obviously you cannot say that these are, UFOs because you never saw the outside of them. You only remember being inside these. Now, how do you actually know that they're a craft, or what makes you believe that these are a craft opposed to maybe some underground base or some, other structure?
Again, that's a very good question. I mean, they could take me to their living room and I wouldn't know it, or their rec room or something. But I always suspected they're ships because of what's going on. He asked me a minute ago, your co-host there, about the technology the technology on the inside. I've seen a lot of technology, and I actually remember it quite well. And it's for at least for the last 10 years, I've seen that, and I've been, I would come back and draw pictures of it, and trying to figure out what it was, what like I would say, like for example, when I'm on the ship, I know how to use this stuff. I know I've seen myself use it. I've seen it. I've been there and done that. But then when I come back, I don't know anything other than what I saw. I don't recognize it anymore when I'm awake. So, but what I would do is I would draw pictures of it and try to understand it myself. And over the years, I end up in the same room all the time, or the same ship, or different areas that I suspect may be a same type of ship. And then a little by little, I start understanding some of the technology of how things work. So and it's actually it's very user friendly. It's not like super advanced when you walk in. It automatically reads your mind and things just happen. You just kind of stand there. They actually do things. They have to go and function and push buttons and do things. And so I was gonna make a comment about the how-to guide they use, or the manual they use to abduct people, or abduct victims.
To the manual.
Yeah, I could say they're the how-to guide to do your nightly abductions, because I'm sure it's quite the task for these guys to do this every night or every other night or 3 times a week or whatever their shift is. So I prefaced earlier about when I ask someone, or the topic does come up, and I've been abducted, and I can often ask them a couple questions to kind of see if I'm even going to talk to them about it, And so what I believe happens, now remember, what I'm telling you, what I believe may not be the exact answer, but I think I'm pretty close because of just the sheer amount of time I've been dealing with this. So, so the way I am abducted, and I think others are too, because they've used the right terminology with it. So what I think happens, I don't think my particular group will pull someone like out a window and suck them up into a ship with a tractor beam or something. That might be very old technology for them, where they just kind of lift you out of bed and suck you through the window and pull you up to the ship. There's all kinds of stories about that. And so I part of me is a little suspicious of those kind of stories, because I actually seen how they do it, and the way it's done, and it's a little hard to explain, but I will do my best to explain it so it's understandable. So I'll paint a story. So you're laying in bed, and I'll like, for example, I'm laying in bed. I'll wake up right in the process of the abduction part, and what I see are lots of little blue lights sparkling in my room, right? Lots and lots of them, and I would see that for years, and then one day I woke up right in the beginning of one and right at the end of one, and then I finally figured it out what was going on. So what I believe, as Dr. Seuss would say, 97 3/4% guaranteed, that the way they abduct people is that they put a bubble around you. They could be doing it from a ship that's nearby your house, or maybe who knows where they're at, but they put a bubble around you, an interdimensional bubble. And so what they do is they wrap you in this, and then they basically transport you out of your room. And so And then what they do is when they put you back, they put the bubble back in, and then they put you back in bed again. Now, the interesting thing is a lot of people are abducted with their spouse right next door to them or laying right next to them, right? Or people in the room. And so it's always like, how come I don't see you being abducted, Bob? I mean, you're right next to me. So what I think happens is they trigger the temporal lobe epilepsy and knock you out even farther. So you're not going to wake up no matter what you do, no matter what happens, right? And then they can go ahead and abduct the person right next to you. And the key for me is the sparkling blue lights. Because I've seen those forever. For my whole life I've seen those. And then and usually when I wake up, it could be like 3 a.m, and I see the lights kind of fading away. I know that I just ended up someplace. And honestly, sometimes I don't remember anything at all, nothing. I'm like, oh, okay, another one of those. And then I just go right back to sleep. And then usually when it does happen, I know for sure. I know that the next day I'm going to be a little bit tired, and then I hit the Starbucks right away, But and so I'm not sure what your opinion is on that. So I was going to ask you, do you see the same thing, or have you seen the same thing or heard of that?
It is a lot like your typical Star Trek beaming out kind of thing, and you're right about the whole bubble and effect that you can see. It fits the entire criteria and how it's actually done. And with you being physically gone and being on a craft, which is also explains why you feel so tired, because you've been walking around aboard this craft and doing whatever task that they have you doing. I have a nickname that I call it. I call it the night shift because it seems to happen during that period. And you're doing all this extracurricular activity going on, and of course you're physically doing things, whether it's some kind of training of some sort. If it's combat training, they'll train you for that. If they're training to
maybe that's what he's going through, combat training.
Also training on various emergency response situations, and they put you through different scenarios and survival skills and so forth. And then once they're done, they send you right back where you are, back in bed. And of course, you're not going to remember that through the most part because that missing time period. But there'd be certain things that you probably remember, and so you try to, like you say, you try to draw what you see, because I do the same thing. I draw everything that I see, whether it's landscapes, even writings, if there's any alien writings that you remember, or even certain languages. Yeah. So anything like that.
John, have you remembered any, like, come back and have this information now of symbols or languages?
Again, that's a very good question. When I was little, I would, for example, my mom would always say that I would always write these little symbols down when I was little, pages of them, and I don't particularly remember seeing the symbols. And I thought about that, and that was one of the past life regressions I had, because I wanted to see if all those little writings I had would make sense. And my mom actually, she said that I would write them everywhere. She said I'd write them on glass. When we're in the car, I would just write them on the window. She actually thought that I was writing Chinese because there were all these symbols, and she thought, yeah. What's that?
Well, how about this? Do you think that, maybe even possibly that you were, maybe even a star child or, part of hybrid program or any of these, so that it was already, born into you? Or do you think possibly you are like Renee, like a walk-in? Have you been able to kind of have an opinion on that?
I used to tease my mom that she wasn't really my mom. The mothership left me.
Oh, yeah.
And,
there you go.
My mom, the mothership left me. Yeah, it was always like a joke. I'd say the mothership left me, and then she would say, "Yeah, they didn't leave a rule book how to treat you." Yeah. So the writing, the answer to the writing thing is, I don't know much about that now, but I when I was little, I would constantly do it. And she said I would speak even a weird language. To me, it didn't make any sense. I don't know much about other. I remember writing all that stuff, and but that didn't go on for very long. That was only I probably stopped doing that when I was about 12 or 13. That I just lost. They either stopped showing it to me, or I just got bored with it. Which I probably got bored with it.
Well, that may have been the case, but then also, you, as you got older and, you're, being taught in school how to write in English. No, I mean, you just acclimate more to what you're being taught and just kind of, you have to use it or lose it,
Right.
So maybe that, is part of it, but yet it's, still there, which, again, here are some more, if you're looking at a bigger picture. So for some people that would look at maybe these things individually, they really don't make a whole lot of sense. But for people who've either experienced it for a very long time or have been researching it for, about it for a very long time, all these things, do make a lot of sense, actually. And it's kind of like a connect the dot, scenario that all points to different things, and so it is very, very interesting.
Yeah, my mom even went as far as saying that I must have been Chinese in my past life or something, and I brought it back with me because I would do it so much. And obviously I wasn't writing Chinese, I was writing all these other things down, and I actually have some about 2 or 3 pages of it that I wrote probably in the early 80s or late 70s that I wrote down, and I never thought much of it until you just brought it up just now. I haven't really, paid much attention to it, but now that you brought it up, it's prompting me to revisit those pages again, because I think I know where they're at.
Well, if you're able to find them, I would love if you would, send it to myself and Renee, and let Renee, look at it, because, I had a guest on last week, Leah Watterson of Australia, and, she actually, after an abduction scenario as well, she started writing these different symbols and things that kind of look, they can look like, it's kind of like Chinese. They're kind of strange, but, I've seen them. And as soon as I saw her post those, it immediately reminded me of many of them I had seen on Renee's page that, he had come to him and he had written down. And so I said, oh, you got to, talk to this person. I'm, my friend on Facebook, and I'm going to have her on the show for the first time. I need to talk to her because she's like writing the same type of, symbols that you do. And so he looked at it, and, she as well had said that she had interaction with reptilians. So, again, maybe this is, a familiar language or something, and maybe Renee will be able to recognize it, or maybe compare it against both his and Leah's. Yeah,
very interesting. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and being on this radio show for the first time actually discussing it in public, or on a media like this, it got me thinking about it. I need to go back and maybe look at that, and maybe it wasn't just a bunch of just messing around. I don't know. Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, like I said, we, love to help you in whatever way we can do with that. But I mean, it just happens. It's, how interesting things, how they all fall into place. Because, who would have thought that, after, we just got you booked for the show last week. Who would have thought that, all this would have came together, and, we would have brought this up, and, then you have the experience of writing it back in the 80s, and actually, might even have them still around, and, and Renee actually, deciphers these kind of symbols. So, it's just nice how the universe all kind of comes together sometimes.
Absolutely. Amen.
Because who knows that, all this stuff it was meant to happen, because when you look at Leah Watterson and then your case, and then there's other cases that are similar that we've had on the show before talking about these writings and so forth, dealing with like the reptilians. So, it just really makes you think that, well, maybe this was meant to pull the writings together, then it will all eventually start to make sense and how this all plays out. And then with your night shift that you're going through, really kind of trigger some things that I went through. It definitely felt like I was going through some various training, and it's kind of like preparing whatever it is that we're going to be facing in the near future, which plays a major role. So it just kind of really helps to try to put it together. I mean, your story really amazes me, and I'm like, oh wow, are you kidding me? It's happened to somebody else like that too.
Yeah, hey brother.
It probably was me that you were beating up. I mean,
I ain't going down easy, I'll tell you that.
Same here. So, I don't know. It is amazing what you remember, and of course, we speak about the technology, and it's like, oh my God, you're going through the exact same things that I did growing up. And I'm 53 right now, so, I've been going through this for quite some time, and, since childhood myself. So it's been pretty amazing growing up with this. Even my mother knew I was totally different in the way I acted, and I was always doing this writing. I was always drawing alien craft inside and outside in alien worlds and their structures and so forth, which is also on my page as well. Christina have seen the pictures that I've drawn, and also the writing, and even star maps and so forth. So it'd be something interesting. I'll be happy to share that with you too.
Oh, absolutely, definitely. I'm all for it.
Oh yeah, I think that Renee, especially for a lot of people, I connected him with Leah as well as many others that I've interviewed and I've come across and made friendships with over the years, and they're actually able to get quite a bit of information, and again, it's very personal, the journey that you go on. And although you are looking for answers, just like you said, Sean, sometimes you really question once you get to like certain things, you're like, well, do I really want to know? Because even myself, I've been experiencing that. Once I started investigating, the paranormal, I got drawn into, more aspects of, the UFOs, and then I started doing sky watches and started taking on, clients, that had been abducted, and, just on and on. And it all started connecting, and I started, like, seeing all the connections between the two fields. And in between, both fields, what people were reporting. And so It really started to kind of like rack my brain. So I'm like, okay, well, this is contrary to what everybody's going to think, but, this is where I'm seeing it all go. For you, I mean, do you see a lot of similarities in both sides? Because, I mean, you, like you said, have grown up being able having these experiences, being abducted and contacted, but you've also had, spirits around and things. So do you think there's a lot of similarities in both fields?
Yeah, that's one of those ultra hypothetical concepts that then there's the whole realm of how much are we supposed to know. How much are we supposed to see on the paranormal? I mean, obviously, if there's spirits and ghosts and all that, they know damn well they're not supposed to come back and mess with us because that's just going to mess us up, And when people get too involved in the paranormal, they get obsessed with it. Obsessions, knowing that there is an afterlife or all that, can actually drive someone crazy. They can get so into it that it actually alters their life. And then there's like he said, there a lot of things are kind of meant to be. We're meant to see certain things, meant to experience certain things, and maybe we are supposed to see these things. Maybe I am supposed to see all this. Like even when I look back at the surgeries or the one story I mentioned about the drill going between my eyes, I'm like, now what are they doing there? I mean, why are they doing that? Are they altering me? Are they doing DNA tests? And so if you track back the anatomy right there, that's going right back to the pituitary gland. That's a very important point there. And, and sometimes I used to think that they would be insulating me from diseases. And this is something I don't know if it has ever come up, but I honestly think I can't ever get sick because I never get sick. I can be exposed to anything and not get sick. I haven't been sick since I was a little kid. I mean, we're talking like a cold, a sniffle, anything. And sometimes I thought that they were kind of messing with me, kind of toughening me up a little bit, or maybe even preparing me for something, And maybe that's kind of like the plan that he was mentioning. Again, I don't know, but I tell you, I am so dang healthy. It even kind of frightens me a little bit. And maybe I am trained for combat training or preparing for something. But maybe there are disasters coming. Maybe the end is near. Who knows?
Well, have you ever had your blood tested, and did you find any abnormalities?
No, I didn't. I've had I have had my blood tested many times, and I always come back perfect. Here's an interesting story. I believe it or not, when I was little, the doctors told me I had not little. When I was 21, I had a little bit of a knee pain, and so I went. This is when I was in the military, and I got it checked out, and they said, "Oh my goodness, you have osteosarcoma. We need to amputate your leg." And I had no idea what osteosarcoma was. And I'm like, are you crazy? You're not amputating my leg? I'm out of here. I declined everything. I didn't even care.
Right.
Well, it turns out I'm one of the only cases ever for a diagnosed thing of osteosarcoma to come and go. I went to oncology seminars in Las Vegas, and the who's who of the world in cancer doesn't even know about stories like that. And I just asked him, have you ever heard of it? And he's like, no. I'm like, okay, just checking. And also I was exposed to heavy chemicals when I was in Japan, an air base called Atsugi, Japan. I was stationed there for a little while, and I was literally 10 feet chemical incinerator. If you Google Hodgkin's lymphoma Atsugi, Japan, you'll see the entire thing on it right now. It's a mess. The 4 guys I was stationed with next to that incinerator, because we didn't know at the time it was causing all these problems, all of them got Hodgkin's lymphoma. I'm the only one that didn't get it. I'm the only one, and I knew I wasn't going to get it. The VA pulled me down many times and tested me over and over again. Well, why don't you have it? But they all got it, and I tell you, I was knee deep in it. I was knee deep in it more than they were, and somehow I didn't get it. So then it goes back to that damn drill. Maybe they're pumping up my immune system, or maybe they're debugging me or something. I don't know. There's so many questions.
Interesting.
And like I said, the more I look into it, the more bewildered I become. And I'm totally serious about that. I can look into it and look into it and look into it and research it, and then it gets to the point, like you said, just go with it. Just kind of, don't even stress over it anymore. It just got to the point where I got bored with it. It's not exciting to me anymore. It's just something that happens. I wake up with scratches. Okay, had that night again.
It's a part of acceptance. It's accepting what we're doing. And it's okay to keep asking questions, to keep researching, because, all of us are designed to learn, and that's a really big part of it, too. But it's taking the fear out of it and just continue to move forward, dealing with the unknown, and accepting it, just like what when I'm with Christina doing our paranormal stuff and investigations, it's dealing with that unknown and not having that whole fear factor involved. That nothing seems to really surprise us, really, when we deal with paranormal and UFOs and aliens. It's just we accept it. This is what's going on, and then we just kind of deal with things as it comes along and to understand it. Because that's why we are even on surviving anyway, because we're learning as we go on, instead of running from it. Yeah, and there's another event that kind of puzzled me, and maybe you could help me with that because you seem to be in the same department. About a few months ago, I was driving, in near Seattle, and I was on the freeway, and I was making I was getting off an on-ramp from one freeway to another freeway, and it was raining out, and I was slowing down a little bit because I don't want to slide off the off-ramp because it's wet up here in the Pacific Northwest. Mm-hmm. And I moved up from San Diego, so I have to be a little extra careful. So anyways, I'm driving around the corner, and I'm being careful, and I'm going around the corner, and this car, this SUV, literally inches on my right side, she's going too fast. I see the lady in there, and it looks like there's kids in the back. And I'm driving along, and there's cars behind me, so then suddenly she skids out of control, misses the front end of my car probably by half a foot, skids off to my left, slides, and starts tumbling in the air and smashes all over the place. And I tell you right now, it didn't faze me a single bit. I just drove along like it was just another minute, no big deal. And it hit me about a mile away. I'm like, oh my goodness, what just hell? I mean, it didn't faze me. I want to ask, have you had that before? I mean, it didn't even. I mean, a normal person, that would have freaked them out. I mean, that was literally, you could have died right there, and that family could have died. Yeah. And it's like didn't faze me. Absolutely, I just whatever. It just went right through it. And I'm thinking, and I have no answer to that at all, other than the fact that I'm being kind of tampered with or something. Because that took away an emotional response that should have happened, but it didn't happen. It's you're being conditioned because what it sounds like. Because I go through the same thing, that it takes a lot of effort for somebody to try to surprise me about anything, even when it comes to a major accident or so forth. And you just go into duty mode or whatever. You don't become surprised what happens. I've seen plenty of accidents and really horrible ones at that. You just kind of, the emotion doesn't kick in. You just automatically, pull over, just take care of the situation as it happens. And I think that's part of the programming that we've gone through, and I think that's what that whole training is, because we're designed to take care of certain things and not to overreact, because once you get overreact, you start making mistakes or causing more panic to everybody else. Right. Can I ask you a question? Sure. Okay. You brought up training a few times, and it's got me thinking again about something. Because I wake up with all these bumps and scratches and the occasional cigar burn. I never thought of it as combat training. I just thought I was kicking her ass or kicking her behind. Sorry, I just thought I was beating them up, or we were fighting and they're trying to strap me down. And I just figured something's going on. Can you describe to me a little bit and enlighten me on this training part, if you understand it, because it might help me a little bit answer a few questions. It could be as far as the training part, using some sort of weapons, even like a kind of a prod that you might have gotten burned on the butt. Because I know I would wake up with various burns or unusual rashes and scrapes and bumps. Like I said, even bleeding. When you wake up from it, you have these marks all over you. Like, there's no way that walked in my sleeping and just ran and everything without waking up.
I try to tell my girlfriend, and she's like, "Why are you getting all these scratches on you? Are you cheating on me?" I'm like, "No." I'm like, I can't even explain them because some of them look like someone scratched me, like someone's beating me up, and I'm like, "No." She's like, "Where are you getting them from?" I'm like, I don't know. I'm just kind of, I'm it's an awkward, like, I can't say anything. I'm like, well, I don't know really why I have all these marks and it's like I was walking through the sticker bushes, just like with no clothes on.
And if you're answering. If he's asking you what's going on and you're answering her, like the way you just described it, she's probably automatically going to think you're cheating because, you're going to, there's nothing wrong, like, I don't know where it came from, I don't know, and of course, it's not like just a little minor scratch. I mean, you're having actually bumps and like bruises, so and like scratches where she's probably looking like, yeah, right. How could you not know where you got those?
And she was even like, maybe you're scratching yourself in your sleep, and I'm like, I'll even take my arm and push as hard as I could to my back, and I still can't reach where these scratches are, and she's watching me, and I'm like, I'm literally putting my pinky in my mouth, going, I don't know really.
We actually have a question from chat, and it actually, kind of, ties into this. But has anybody else in your family, whether your girlfriend or anybody, have they had any experiences like you?
That's again a very good question. I think so. I think over the years, I've kind of caught wind of certain stories. Now, my current girlfriend, hope she's not listening, but she actually has been describing very strange dreams, very unusual, strange dreams, and I'm immediately thinking to myself, oh, damn, they're messing with her too. They're messing with her, but I'm not going to tell her that. I am absolutely, she would dump me right there, probably instantaneous.
So she'd go into fear mode.
Or something, yeah, and she's explaining these things, and I can joke, oh, you're just being abducted. Oh, yeah, whatever, and but
so
the way she's describing them.
I take it she doesn't know your story then, though, so she doesn't know this story.
Absolutely not.
Okay. Well, it makes sense that she wouldn't.
I'm telling you guys. I'm telling your show here, anonymously, partially anonymously, more than I've told anybody in one time. No one has ever heard all this in one sitting at all.
This is. I know because it's hard. Especially having a relationship because. I've been married twice, and because of things that I've gone through, and even, my first wife, noticed I've had these marks too, and of course, that kind of led to one thing after another, and no longer, being part of that relationship, and it is so hard because we used to go, the Christian family, life kind of thing, and it was really hard to discuss with the Christian organization because it put me on the the spotlight under their microscope, and they're examining all the marks that I've had and other things that took place that would appear to be as paranormal, whatever, or in their eyes demonic. But this was far more greater than I could ever really explain because I couldn't explain to them because that they only see it one way. And so,
those damn demons.
Yeah, it's like, I go through that every night.
And believe me, I'm fighting them off, man.
I've learned how to tuck and roll. Well, okay, not very well then, but.
Right.
Well, I think that it would be very, to be a female or to, say I'm dating or somebody, it's very hard for me to find somebody. As soon as they find out I can see spirits, like right away they're thinking like I'm doing voodoo. Like I've had guys say like, oh, I don't want you to be making no voodoo doll, making stuff happen to me, or I don't want you reading my mind. And I, have no idea how it all works, but, just the fact that, they find out I can see spirits, that's the first strike. Then they find out that not only am I a paranormal investigator, but that I run the team, and then I speak all over the country, about these topics. And, so, yeah, for the dating scene, it's not a very popular unless you get with other people in this field, and, then you're taking your chances on there. So yeah. It's hard to find somebody who will accept you, for what your experience has been, and especially if they continue. And I'll tell you, a person will probably, still stay if they live with you and there was paranormal activity, as long as it wasn't anything that was bad or hurting somebody. But when you tell somebody that, oh, yes, I've been being abducted my whole life, and, now that you're with me, there's probably a good chance that at some point you're going to be abducted as well. So, those stories, those dreams you've been having, yeah, well, that might be the beginning.
Perfectly normal.
For most people, they'll run for the hills, because
right.
That's something that a person just, has no control over, and is just a very scary thought for most.
Yeah, well, we are kind of crazy, I have to admit.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Trying to find somebody else within this field, they may understand you, they may have experiences like you, but we're all a little crazy. So who knows?
It's kind of funny that you guys are saying that, because hearing you talk, I'm going, wow, that sounds normal. Like somebody else is getting beat up.
Right.
Yeah. Well, like I said, we are a completely different breed of people. I will say that. It's not too often, and I think that that's why it is good, to be able to have groups like, our group, where people can join and they can freely talk about their experiences without somebody jumping out at them and saying, yeah, whatever, dude, that didn't happen. Why are you even trying to say some craziness like that? Instead you're going to, get a lot of support and people, asking questions and, wanting to know, just like how, you've been doing tonight, Sean, as well, asking Renee questions. A lot of times when you start, realizing that, people have had some similar experiences to you, some of the questions that you may have, these other people might have, some direction or the key to the answers you're looking for. So it is very interesting, and I think very beneficial for people to get together and share these stories, whether they disclose their name or not, because again, I have really not found anybody or that has ever come on my show. Maybe there are other people go on other people's shows, but people who come on my show, I always feel are very genuine about their stories. I don't get that feeling, that they're, pulling one over just to get some attention and get some, recognition. And again, many people kind of waver even on using their own names. And I can remember back on Coast to Coast with George Norrie, you'd always get like, Mr. X or somebody that would come on, because they were that concerned because, they do have a career or a good job or they're in the public eye or whatever it may be. And, even still with all the attention that this field has gotten and the fact that there are, hundreds of thousands of people who, have stepped forward to report their experiences with abduction, there are still so many that, still don't believe. And so you can still be very persecuted or kind of blacklisted for coming out and, in their eyes, talking this craziness.
And wait till you tell someone that you come back with technology ideas and, the like for example, I brought it up earlier when he was talking about the technology stuff or the questions about what I see. Well, I think that they, and trying to explain it to someone is a little bit tough. So one time, again, about 10 years ago, I was on one of the ships, and he had asked me if I recognized it. And I do it when I'm in the moment, when I'm actually in scene or whatever I'm doing. And then when I come back, I remember being there, but but at that time I don't kind of recognize anything. But there was one thing that I came back and I recognized, and I knew how it worked. And I'll describe it to you, and maybe he understands it. But then the other half of the story happened about last August, just about a year ago, a little over a year ago. And so I'll describe it, and then he'll let me know if he understands it. When I was on one of the times I was on the ship or wherever I was at, someone's rec room, and there was a lot of activity going on, and I was walking through a certain section, and I had to put my hand on something, right? And so it was a square box with a glass top, and I would describe it as technology that is probably, maybe 10 generations away from here. It's not super technology, it's not super advanced, but in essence, I would put my hand on it, and it almost knew what it actually measured my intentions. Like, for example, if you had one on your house, you could put your hand on it, and it would turn your lights on for you because that's what you wanted. Right, or it would turn the oven on, or turn the refrigerator on extra high, or something like that. But and so that's what it did. And I actually came back with the knowledge of how that machine worked, right? And it would basically do something. It would measure what you want to do, and it'll just do it. Way more advanced than what I came back, but that was the general gist of it. So a friend of mine who got a PhD in gas mechanics, who works for NASA right now at this very moment. Him and I tried to figure this device out because he actually was helping me with the gas part of it that I didn't understand. The engineering aspect I got, but the gas part I didn't. So he was helping me out with it. So we fiddled and farted with it, and whatever. And then we just kind of forgot about it, right? Just kind of ignored it, whatever. So what happened was this idea stuck in my head every single day. Every day I would think about it, but it wasn't to a point where I wanted to make it, right? So then. I'm totally honest. It would hit me at least for one thought throughout the period of a day, and it never left me for about 10 years. Then one day I'm on I'm on the ship, and then I come back with a little piece of technology, right? And this one was really, really interesting because when I looked the way it's made, I knew. Now, hang on to your seats. Are you guys hanging on to something?
Yep.
Just say yeah. Okay, good. Okay. when I I can see you guys. Okay. So okay. When I got the technology, I knew what it was immediately. It was a gravity generator, right? But I didn't know how it worked. I couldn't engineer it. But I drew it out. And I looked at it, and I knew what it was. It was a gravity generator. So, in essence, a small one you could put under a coffee cup and dial it in. It'll just hover the coffee cup right there, right? And I started kind of thinking about it a lot. But then again, I kind of, I didn't know how it worked, but I thought it was just a really cool idea or cool technology. So then I didn't try to make that because I didn't understand how it worked on the inside. So then, a little time goes by. And then I remember the day. It was August of last year, not the last August, but the August before that. And I was laying in bed, and again I was right in that transition point. I wasn't awake and I wasn't asleep. I was right in that transition point. And suddenly, in my mind, these two designs merged together. Okay, so you have to visualize that. The first one of 10 years ago, the second one a few years later. Then a few years later, I'm laying in bed. I'm just getting up, and the designs, while I'm just in that transition point, merged together. I bolted out of bed so fast I almost hit my head, and I said, "OMG, that's it. That's how it works." And I was so excited. that something, I actually put something, I can actually make something now. I immediately got dressed and ran to the coffee shop. I didn't know who to talk to. I called up my friend in San Diego, he's kind of like a man, he's my mad scientist buddy. You know, we all have one of those, right? I called up my mad scientist buddy, and I told him, I told them what it was. But at that point, I don't want to tell anybody because, holy cow, what if I'm onto something, right? So I tell him what it is, and he's absolutely fascinated. He connects me up with a guy. Now, I don't want to use his name on air, but this is the only guy to ever reproduce the Tesla Tower. So you can find it. You can find out who he is that way. But the Tesla Tower was made. He's the only guy ever to reproduce it, and he got the whole funding and everything. And so he connected me up with this guy who's one of the leading, you know, top 5 or 6 leading guys on gravity on Earth, right? This guy's connected up with the Russian scientists and all that. And so he connected me up with this guy who I didn't know who he was at the time. So him and I spoke on the phone, and he put me through what's called a smell test. He basically asked me some real basic questions, and he basically said, okay, you need to get down to San Diego right now. And I'm like, what? He's like, yep, as soon as you can. You need to come down here. We need to talk. Because what I did was when I wrote down what my dream was, over 2 pages, I drew the whole thing out, exactly how it works, what's needed, everything. And I described it to him a little bit. So I went to San Diego, like literally right away. He had a couple other guys meet me there, and they were literally taking pictures of my drawings, taking pictures of it. They couldn't figure it out the way it was. Exactly. So I would explain it to them and show it to them, but they couldn't get it. They weren't grasping it. And so I described it to them. And so I'm going to tell your audience right now. You guys ready?
Ready. Let's go.
And what I'm about to tell you has never been made before. As long as I know, or as far as I know, it has not been made before. There are scientists right now, today, very close to it that I've discovered. They're very, very close to it, but they're not quite there. They're in the same kind of field, but they can't. They're missing some key components. Okay, so what you have, picture a flying saucer, just a typical flying saucer, or maybe two circular cones, one and then a mirror image of one on the bottom, like, you know, 2 circular cones together, almost like a flattened out top. You know the top you would spin, right? Okay. Right. So picture a flattened out top. Now what you have on the inside of each of the tops is a self-contained plasma field. Okay. Now I know how to make the plasma field. There's certain parts I won't say, but I'll tell you parts of it. And what you have you have a plasma field, a self-contained plasma field on the top, and a self-contained plasma field on the bottom. Now the plasma is brought almost to infinity, if you know how light works. Okay. So what you have is counter-rotating plasma fields in between counter-rotating magnetic fields. Okay. So in essence, what it came to me during these technology trips I was having is that what happened is you're creating a gravity bubble. So in essence, and believe me, I spent a lot of time on this over the last year trying to figure this out. In essence, what happens is it's almost as if you're sitting in a bathtub and you pass gas or you fart in a bathtub, right? And the bubble will go up. What this does, it's as if you can control the bubble. You can stop the bubble halfway up, make it go back down, make it go right, and make it go left. Right? Are you guys following me a little bit?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let me know if I talk too fast or I'm going on, because this thing is so incredibly simple, but very, very, very cool. Once it's together. So what you're able to do, and what I believe is happening, is what's called a gravity bubble. Now, when I was talking to these scientists, what they actually said, you are so on the right track. You are absolutely on the right track. And so there's some tweaking that I had to do. So what happened was, if you technically create a gravity bubble like I described, no one has ever done that before. And what they said is, if this thing can be made, you're going to write a whole chapter in physics that has not been written yet, because what happens on the inside of the bubble? Yeah, exactly. What happens on the inside of the bubble, right? So we don't know if okay, I'm assuming you understand the space-time continuum and the expanding universe theory. So if your audience is unfamiliar with that, what the expanding universe theory is it goes back to the Big Bang theory. So from the Big Bang theory concept, everything started off at a small atom and boom, started expanding outward. So the concept of the expanding universe theory and the space-time continuum is in essence, as the universe expands, time moves forward. Okay, so as the universe is expanding, we are moving forward, second by second by second, and that's called the space-time continuum or the expanding universe theory. Again, it's all theory, but so what happens is, if you create a gravity bubble, the question that we had to ask ourselves is, what laws of physics are going to happen inside that bubble, right? Is it the laws of physics of the Earth, the laws of physics of the sun? Is it the galaxy, or what in the world is going to happen inside that bubble? Do you actually are you briefly escaping the space-time continuum? So in essence, are you creating a time machine? Or is the bubble, if Earth is moving at, 44,000 miles an hour, is all of a sudden Earth going to leave it? You know what I mean? And the bubble just sits there? There's no laws of physics that's going to describe what's happening. Now, I will tell you again, in full disclosure, I'm building this device right now.
Sweet.
Wow.
We actually have it partially
You hear that,
built.
Everybody?
We have it partially built right now. Oh, okay. I was going to say we have it partially built right now, and we're almost to the testing phase, and we're just hoping it doesn't blow up.
Oh yeah,
it doesn't just like pop or something. Yeah. And so we're going to take it out to a place just in case it has a space-time continuum component. We even have a test bench set up in the middle of the desert or an area that hasn't been touched for hundreds of years or whatever. That we're basically going to turn it on and turn it off immediately, on and off, like for 1 second. And if it does escape the laws of physics of Earth and transition the space-time continuum, we want to be able to measure where it goes or what happens to it. So we have all of these plans for what might happen. We have these ways to figure out if it does disappear, what's going to happen and how we do it. And it's actually really intriguing. And it could lead to absolutely nothing as well. It could be I'm just imagining a whole bunch of stuff. But heck, if it works, it's going to change everything. It's so, like I said, it's so simple to make. It's tricky to make, but it's very, very simple and has not been done yet. There you go.
Well, that is absolutely amazing, and I, hope that you will keep in touch with us and, absolutely, let us know how this all works out once you get it, built and test, and, absolutely come back on the show to let us know. I think that it'll be absolutely another amazing show. But I do want to thank you again. We've got just a couple minutes left in the show. But, thank you so much for having, taking the time and agreeing to come on the show tonight, on our show tonight, to tell your story. I'm very honored. It means a lot to me.
Well, I'm honored, too, and thank you. Thanks for listening to me anyway.
Absolutely.
Oh, no, fascinating story, absolutely fascinating. So, all right, Renee, do you have anything that needs to be up before we get off here?
No, other than that, boy, we got to talk.
Well, she has my Facebook post. She knows where I'm at.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll make sure that you and Renee get connected for sure. But I want to thank everybody who was in chat tonight, all of our listeners. The numbers were amazing again tonight. So thank you so much for everybody who listens every single week to all of the shows. And make sure to tune in next week for another episode of Aliens, UFOs, and Beyond. And you can also catch mine and John Austin shows, which is The Darker Side of the Paranormal, this Sunday, 4 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, and Monday, Paranormal Connections. So we will see you next week, everybody. Good night. Once again, thank you for being on the show, Sean.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.